Hello and welcome to the lecture on form with get method. So let's create a form and use a method as get, and then we'll write a PHP code to access those values. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a form, we'll enter the data, then push it to the server. At the server side we'll write the PHP code, and at the PHP code we'll try to access those data. Okay, so this will help you show how to read variables that has been sent over from client to server. Okay, so for that we're going to create a folder called forms, and the first method we're going to use is get. Okay, and here we're going to create the PHP file and also our HTML file. So I'm going to paste the HTML file first. Okay, we'll use Sublime to open the code. Alright, so before that let's open this file. So make sure your AMPS is running. Okay, and then we'll access our local host. So to access this path you need to enter from after www, whatever is a folder, you enter that and then you enter your file name. Okay, so this is a simple form. You have a text field, then you have an email ID, you have a submit and a reset button. So let's review the code. Nothing fancy, is a simple form. So let's understand what is the form look like. You have a form, right, and form has an action called display.php. so we're going to create this file. The method are of two types, post and get. So we'll understand what is the difference between get and post when we submit this form, and we'll understand how to read the get variables. And then we have a field set, that is nothing but this box over here is called as a field set. Then for a field set you have a legend, and then you have your input text, that's basically your input, then your input, right, and then you have a name and an ID for it, and type is text, and then you have a submit button, and then you have a reset button. Okay, and the type for this two input type, one type is email, one type is text. Okay, very simple HTML form, and whatever you enter here, let's say John Smith and test@test.com. okay, we don't have this page like display.php. let's create this page. Okay, and let's open this up, and we're gonna say hello from display.php. all right, so let's submit the page. Okay, so we went to display.php and then we said hello from here. All right, the most important thing that you have to understand this is how a get method works. Okay, and what is the difference between get and a post. When we go to post we'll talk about the difference between get and post, but now understand what is the get method. The get method basically pass the input in the URL itself. You see the data here, let's observe this. Let me open a notepad. Let's open this up and let's open our HTML code. Okay, so if you look at our HTML and then you look at the parameter that is being passed, okay, every element is basically separated with ampersand. Okay, that's first point. And whatever is the value, the input text, okay, is your name, right, whatever you give it here will be given it here, and whatever is the value that you are entering is equal to that value. Okay, then ampersand, then input type is equal to that value. All right, so this basically the field name, and whatever is the value you're entering, that value is entered here. So this is how the data is been sent from HTML page to our display.php. so how do we read this? How to read this is what we're going to learn in this lecture, but try to understand how the get method works. So when you submit something, let's say you submit, right, the URL is nothing. So when you submit, this data is been sent in the URL after the question mark. So there's also a question mark here. So understand the purposes of all the symbols here, right? For every URL, the parameters is starting after the question mark. Okay, so what happens is it is like this, right? And how it is parameters are is like field is equal to value, ampersand field is equal to value. This is how it is represented. And what is the field? The field is nothing but your input text, right? Whatever the name that you give, that field name. And value is whatever the value you are entering in the form. You have entered this, then that will be your value. So field is equal to value, field is equal to value separated with an ampersand. Okay, that's why you see an ampersand. It is separating two different fields, right? Input type text, and input type email. Alright, so this is how the URL param works for get method. When you change the method to post, okay, you will not see this data in the URL. This will be sent as a post method to the page. Alright, so for get method, you will get this in the URL. So remember that whenever someone is doing a get method, you are submitting as a get method, you will always expect to have in the URL, and the format is like this. After question mark there will be parameters, and parameters will be in this format. Field is equal to value separated with an ampersand, then field is equal to value. Okay, all right, so let's understand how to read this, right? That's what we're going to write the code now. All right, so we need a HTML page, so we copy this. Okay, we leave everything like this, remove the form, and what we're going to do is we're going to start reading that input. Okay, so let's read it. So before that, we will add a link back. Okay, we're going to say index.html. It's not index.html, student form.html. all right, so we want to go back, right, one step back. So we say back to home. So when you run this PHP code, right, you have this link, so you can go back or you can stay on this page. So now you have the link. Now let's try to access the URL param. Okay, how to access the URL parameter which is sent via the get method? Okay, so we define a variable name, and we have this global variable called $_get, and in this get basically these values are stored, right? So before that, what we can do is we can just echo what is inside this, so we will get an understanding of how to access this first. All right, so let's echo this out first. What is inside this variable? Global variable $_get. Okay, and then we'll try to extract the fields that we want. Okay, whatever fields we have, like input_text and input_email, we'll try to extract it. So before that, we print it. Okay, so because it has this data, okay, let's print it. So it's an array, right? Good, so we know it's an array. It's very good. So what you can do is you can do a var dump now, right? You know it's an array, so var dump this data. Okay, right, so now you see the input_text is pointing to this string, the input_email is pointing to this string. So now when you pass this, you can access the associative array, right? How do you access associative array? Name is equal to $_get, you pass the key and then you get the value. That's how you access the associative array. Okay, this is email. Right, now we can echo name. All right, so let's refresh our page. So what we can do is we can comment the var dump. Right, now you can access John Smith and the email, and the good thing is you don't have to really depend on whatever the user send. You can actually change from the URL as well. So I'm gonna say php@php.com. okay, so it doesn't care what has been sent over, it only care what is available in the URL. Because you're using get, the get will always care about what is stored in the URL. Doesn't matter what has been sent over, anybody can change this. You change this and you execute the program, it will take these parameters. So it's also hinting you that whatever you're sending in the URL parameter is not safe. Anybody can have this page, change the data and refresh your page. So your page will try to read this data. So they can manipulate it. They have the control to manipulate the input parameters. When you do the post, then they won't lose that feature. That's why when you compare a difference, get and post, get data is basically a simple data that you don't want to hide. You want to just show like navigation page, you're on the first page, second page. You want to pass the token key. If someone change the token key, they won't have access to the page, right? So those kind of things you want to pass into the URL param, right? And then once you change the field name as well, let's say, right, you're not able to access it, right? So be careful with what you sent over in the URL param. And whatever you sent over is automatically stored in this variable. You don't have to do anything. The PHP itself will take care of storing that URL into an associative array. And whenever you want to access it, you just access it via passing the input value. And if you're very confused how it is work and you don't know how you have to get those details, just do a var dump of _get and you will get to know whatever is inside that URL param, and then you can start accessing that specific fields. Alright, so it's very simple to work with forms and how to access the form elements with the get method. Alright, so this exercise, do it and understand how to access those variables, and I'll see you in the next one.